Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another Total War Warhammer 2 community cast. Now this time around, it is a battle between the High Elves and the Tomb Kings on the map Troll Country. Both factions quite far from home in this replay. And this game was one submitted to me by BastosFC. Hopefully I'm not butchering the name too hard. I do try my best. Now, what I was promised here is that Alith Anar is taking part, and that is really what has me quite excited, because Alith Anar is not a lord I use quite a lot, and it's not a lord I see very often. However, he does definitely have some tricks up his sleeve, and we're going to see some of those in play in this match. If we look at him over here, we can see he does have most of his items and his abilities. Darken the Skies granting plus 20 reload skill to the surrounding troops. Obviously, this Death Ball of Sisters of Avalorn is the core of this High Elf army quite clearly. He does also have Shadow Crown. Now this is a very expensive item. It grants extra speed and melee defense. I'm not sure it's always worth it, but perhaps hoping to help prop up the Sister of Avalorn if the backline is compromised. Besides that, we do see Slippery, helps Alith Anar get away a little better, makes him a little nippier. Mislead, this is a good ability to simply disrupt enemy charges. Usually you won't fool players with the clone, but at least it does allow Alith Anar to reposition because it gives Alith Anar stalk and snipe. And it also does act as a body blocker, which is important. Finally, Moonbow, which is a pretty powerful magic missile, potentially able to sort of chip away at key enemy targets. With Tomb Kings, you often have constructs or lords that you really want to snipe down, and Alith Anar is able to do that with the Moonbow. Alongside him is a Handmaiden to really complement this firing squad of Sister Avalorn. And we're going to look at these monstrous range stats in just a second, but this lady here is coming in with Quicksilver Shot, which grants plus 10 reload skill, stacking on the 20 that Alith Anar is granting. Then Horn of Isha, granting another plus 5 reload skill. So we're up to plus 35 reload skill, and it shows in the firepower these sisters are toting. 40 on the base variant. You can see they have a 5.5 second reload time, and on the Everqueen's Court card it's down to 3.5 seconds, which is nuts. At this point they might be firing faster than their reload speed. I'm not entirely, or than their reload animation. I'm not entirely sure. It's not something I've ever tested, but I would not be surprised. And they will be essentially bow machine guns. Besides that, we do also have Foe Seeker. I'm not sure that's worth it on a foot character. Definitely when you're on foot, you're not necessarily the most mobile, and oftentimes you're not that useful for combat, but perhaps if you need to reposition or try to run away from some foot units, it's useful. And Enchanted Spyglass is going to grant a little extra damage output here to the sisters as well, though I do believe it only applies to non-AP damage, so might not help as much. Regardless, we do see that the Evergreen scorecards and the sisters are going to be absolutely beastly this game if they can stay online, and that's going to be the real challenge here for Bastos, trying to keep them alive. There is no caster, which is a bit of a surprise, something I would not usually recommend, but perhaps there simply wasn't money left over, you can certainly, and it's certainly not a mandatory thing. A lot of people say that you have to bring caster, but I could certainly see this build working without one. We'll see how it performs here. We do have some Dragon Princes providing some reserve here. Fireborn on the flank. These guys, of course, if they get a nice little jump on enemy forces, could do quite a bit of damage. As well as two Authenticity Guard propping up the flanks against light cavalry, chariots, that sort of thing. Now for the Tomb Kings, it is a pretty rush-heavy build. A mix of Tomb Guards, Skeleton Spears, and Skeleton Warriors making up the front line. Now weirdly, the Skeleton Warriors are behind the Tomb Guard. Normally you want these guys in front, so they soak up the shots for the Tomb Guard, not the other way around. Besides that, we do have Cetra coming in to lead the charge, and coming in on his beautiful chariot here, the Chariot of the Gods. Now this is a very powerful unit against more elite elven infantry if you can actually get into them. He does have his spells full, or not full roster, but a good roster of spells here. He's got Nair's Incantation of Protection, Joss Incantation of Cursed Blades, able to proc that Restless Dead and boost up most of this army. Most of this army is Skeleton Warriors. And the chariots actually count as a skeleton unit as well, so Citra can actually heal them all with his procs there. Usef's Incantation of Dedication. This is a good debuff if you're dealing with more elite elven troops, for example the Fireborn. And finally, we do have the Blessed Blade of Tra as well as Wrath of Tra, so you can extricate himself from bad positions, do a little more damage, debuff enemies. Just very, very useful stuff. One thing I will say is a little bit of an iffy choice here is bringing Cetra on his chariot, because he gets fire attacks, which are very bad against Phoenixes, and Dragon Princes, which are very common sights. And in fact, in this matchup, we do see Bastos rolling with two Dragon Princes, which are practically invulnerable with their 70% fire resist. Besides that, we do have two chariots there to compromise the backline. The Ushabti Greatbows, who are immediately going to start chipping away at the spears and hopefully going to shift fire to one of the more elite High Elf units. I certainly wouldn't recommend wasting your ammo on spearmen. We do also have Necropolis Knight Halberds. Interesting choice, something you don't see all that often, but a powerful anti-large unit, potentially. And then we do also have the Eyes of the Desert, so further anti-large there. Definitely some nastiness. With their new ammo buff, these guys can really actually lay the hurt down on units like dragons, dragon princes, and stuff like that. These guys are brutal, far more brutal than they used to be. Now, the chariots are going to start sort of swinging out here. We can see some of those early shots that were wasted on the spears, but now more arrow fire is going to start raining in on the dragon princes. Unfortunately, these Necropolis Knights get a little cheeky here alongside Cetra and immediately take that volley fire from the Everqueen's Court Guards and Sisters. Cetra immediately loses about 1300 HP here, coming under that massive blast cannon fire essentially, and is forced to move off. In the meantime, over here, the Fireborn are going to get the jump on these chariots, I would assume. Are they going to ignore him? No. Oh, we do see the Lothran Seaguard chipping them down. Already these guys are a little low, and now the Fireborn are going to come out. Keep in mind, Skeletons are not going to be fast enough to outrun these boys. Fireborn 78 speed and on the charge are going to snag these guys, no problem. And 80 armor is not going to save you against some very hefty anti-large bonus. Already a model is lost. Now here, there is going to be a bit of a risky maneuver, but Bastos does take advantage of the clumping the Skeletons have done to try to flank with the Lothran Seaguard. This is definitely a bit of a misplay on the Tomb King player's part. Here, you can see these Tomb Guard and Skeleton Warriors all clumped up, and while it does make for a very epic-looking moment here, you don't want this sort of clump happening. These Skeleton Warriors, or maybe the Tomb Guard, could have easily been flanking around. Same thing over here. You do not need to double up your units like this. That is a massive waste of resources, and so that is allowing Bastos to preserve his blob of firing here, and these guys are doing insane amounts of work. Now these Dragon Princes are the ones taking the hurt from the shot the Great Bows. And in the meantime, the Sisters here mowing down the Necropolis Knights. Another big misplay here is staying in range of these ladies, and they're really paying the price. Over in the meantime, the poor Lothran Seaguard are going to get pincered, and they're going to get mown down, so definitely not ideal. Tomb King doesn't accept that flank at all. In the meantime, the Sisters of Avalorn are going to walk their fire onto the Shop the Great Bows, willing them down further. Dragon Prince in the meantime plowing into this front line, attacking these non-anti-large units, and the Fireborn are actually pulling back. So I think this is generally some pretty good play here from Bastos, making sure that he doesn't overextend his Dragon Princes out somewhere on the flanks, chasing cheap units, and he always has some unit here in the back line to protect against these Skeleton Chariots, units like that. In the meantime, the Sisters of Avalorn are going to annihilate the poor Necropolis Knights with halberds. They're not going to have much left for them. Sure, they got rid of those Lothran Seaguard, but these poor guys have just got mown down. Ushabti did extricate themselves, but not before losing 2 models. And although these chariots are going to close the gap now into the Sisters, they are already tired. The Sisters are actually going to soak up the charge. And with their beefy melee stats, honestly, I don't see the chariots doing too much here. Ladies aren't even going to lose a model or any additional models. Like, let's say have already lost 3. But I guess they lose 1, but that's definitely not too huge. Curse is going down here. The Usef's Incantation of Desiccation, debuffing this entire line. And that will probably allow this pocket here to buckle very quickly. I think this should have been casted much earlier. Debuff this earlier. But the Overcast is definitely a bit of a misplay. Always know what your spell does on Overcast. Minus 40 melee attack on spears is a complete waste. It just doesn't matter. So just should have been a normal cast here for sure. Eyes of the Desert are getting mown down, just cannot hold up to that firepower, while in the meantime the Dragon Prince and the Fireborn bog down these spears and these Skeleton Warriors and Tomb Guard, preventing them from pushing through, and the Sisters just delete poor Cetra from the game. I think there won't even be a single byte of his game files left after they are through with him, and he's really having a horrible time here. He does get the curse off on these spearmen, but honestly, not good for him, and at this point, Balance of Power is pretty decidedly in the Heil favor. Now, if the Ushabti gets some high-value sniping done against the Fireborn, who still haven't moved to disable them, Alith and Anar is still tied down with the Sisters, trying to deal with Cetra here. So, granted, these guys will probably get most of their ammunition off, I would assume, but at this point, I just don't see it. Even if they delete an entire unit of Dragon Princes, the other unit could probably run amok and delete all of this infantry, even if the Sisters couldn't do it. And honestly, Sister of Avalorn, Everqueen's Court Guard especially, just have such brutal melee stats, especially with the buffs coming in from Alith and Anar and the Handmaiden, an extra 5 melee attack and 5 melee defense. So as they just gun down these advancing Skeleton Warriors, honestly, the The day is definitely slipping from the grasp here of the Tomb Kings. Cetra is going to try to push forward here, trying to get an engagement. Now, good job with Dushapti. They're up to 32 kills. Unfortunately, Moonbow, they're going to slam into Cetra. And he is not going to have a good day. And the Imperishable certainly perishes. His mount riddled with arrows, and yeah, he didn't have the best of days there. In the meantime, the Ushapti, but like I mentioned, the Ushapti were doing a great job here. They have gained a chevron, I believe, 33 kills. Basically all those except for a handful at the beginning, against Fireborn and Dragon Princes, so netting massive value there. But at this point, it's just a bunch of infantry left. Skeleton Warriors especially just cannot hold up. Honestly, Sister of Avalorn could mulch these guys. Over here, the Ushapti are going to get blocked off by the Dragon Princes. Now, they might kill a few of the Dragon Princes, but it's just not going to be enough at this stage. They're going to disintegrate before they can get much done. And at this stage, the Tomb King player does decide to concede. So, a pretty intense and fast-paced match. I think there were quite a few mistakes made that are worth mentioning, but also some pretty good plays and some clever decision-making. So, we're going to go over those a little bit. Now, first and foremost with compositions. I think on the High Elf end here, I'd say the composition had a little more issues. Lack of caster, I think, is a bit of a mistake. I think you could probably finagle your finances a little bit and try to open up the path for an additional, for a caster in there. Obviously, your main large killing power in this build is Alith, Anar, the Handmaiden, and the Double Sisters. So I think you could, for example, shave off a handful of items on Alith, Anar. For example, he doesn't need the melee defense item. You could shave off the missile damage buff and Foe Seeker on the Handmaiden, and then downgrade the Fireborn to normal Dragon Princes. And you would then free up, I think, enough money for a simple caster on foot. And that is all you need. You could bring like a light caster with a net, and that is all you need there. But I think it would give this build a little more staying power and a little more versatility if your opponent goes with a more mobile build. For example, brings more light cavalry or something along those lines. That is really my main compositional critique there, but something I felt was worth mentioning. On the Tomb King end, I thought it was a pretty solid build here. Most of it just came down, I think, to misplays. Now, as far as the plays go, I thought it was great how Bastos managed to keep his Dragon Princes back, and didn't allow them to overextend. I think what a lot of more aggressive players, honestly even myself included, often do is they'll go chasing after cheaper units. For example, when Bastos sallied out with his Fireborn to go chasing after the Skeleton Chariots, he pushed them away, he pressured them away from the backline, but then he didn't overextend and go chasing them willy-nilly all over the place. He didn't allow them to get caught up in the fight with the Eyes of the Desert, Necropolis Knights, etc., that whole pocket of doom there. He retreated, pulled them back, and kept them safe closer to his formation, and I think that was a good move. Now, obviously, the Lothern Seaguard there did end up paying the price, but I think it was better than potentially sacrificing the Fireborn for no real gain there. So I think that was some good play. Obviously, keeping the Sister of Avalorn was just critical, keeping them online. 2 chevrons gained basically says it all. They might not have been netting the most massive amount of kills, but they annihilated the Halberds, they annihilated the Eyes of the Desert here, annihilated one of the Skeleton Chariots, and annihilated Cetra. So just thousands of HP and damage done. And actually, they chipped away. The only 2 Ushapti that died to the Sisters. Maybe to Alith, Anar and the Handmaiden a little bit too. But the damage they did was insane. And so keeping them alive was very, very well done there. Now, the Tomb King player's part, I think it was a good job pulling away the Ushapti and making sure the Ushapti essentially stayed on target and stayed online throughout the whole game, chipping away at the high-value cavalry. That said, I'm not sure that was the correct decision. I think it might have actually been better to try to chip away at the Sister of Avalorn and the Everqueen's Court Guards, try to whittle them down. I also think there was quite a bit of indecision on the part of Philo here that ultimately cost him a lot in this game. Running Cetra and the Necropolis Knights in front of the Sister of Avalorn early in the game, and then sort of waffling and maneuvering them behind his line, but still within range of the Sister of Avalorn, I think was a big misplay. It ended up costing him an immense amount of HP. When the Sisters have so many rate of fire bonuses and are just deleting you in seconds, you cannot be sitting there getting pounded away, getting pounded on like that, and just accept it. You have to get out of range. Either you're committing to a fight or you're staying the hell out of range, and I think that bit of indecision there definitely cost Philo. I think it would have been better to hold off, and then once all of his infantry was engaging, just commit, try to get the skeleton chariots in through the lines, get them on top of the Everqueen's court guard, keep the Ushapti pounding away, perhaps at the Fireborn, perhaps at the Dragon Princess, or maybe just at the Everqueen's court guard, units like that, while your cavalry surges forward, tries to get in, engage on the Dragon Princess as well. So I think a more concerted, sort of more coordinated effort had to be made, and it just didn't happen in this game. Also stacking a little too much with the Tomb Guard. We saw the Tomb Guard stack on top of the Skeleton Warriors. That is not something you ever want to be doing, unless it's like a late game situation where you just don't give a crap and you're looking to swarm like one last foot character or whatever. It's just not something that's worth doing, and I think it definitely didn't help here. That's another thing. So Bastos only had a 4 spear front line. So if you get your, let's say you actually commit your elites to bogging that down, which you didn't even have to do. You could bog down these spears on just the Skeleton Warriors. Maybe you have like one Tomb Guard anchoring that. Flank with your other 2 Tomb Guard. They can then engage the Lothan Sea Guard. That in turn frees up all this mobility to try to compromise this backline. Just my 2 cents there. But well played to Bastos. Definitely some solid plays there. Definitely some, in my opinion, good show of restraint, which actually proved pretty important in some cases. Potentially being a little more aggressive might have cost him more heavily. Really only main critique here, let's try to fit in a caster. You don't always need a caster, but I think it's usually valuable to have at least one. But good game. If you guys are interested in me casting and reviewing your own gameplay, don't hesitate to send your replays in to wyverngamingreplays@gmail.com. I will be leaving a link in the description below. Since I can't cast community casts without submissions, so that's on you guys if you guys are interested in this sort of stuff. But regardless, big thanks to Bastos for the submission. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.